Thank you, Chuck, and thank you, Leanne, for extending the invitation. Always glad to come talk at Lipscomb. I spent 3 meaningful years at Lipscomb from 1974 to 1977. And every chance I get to come back, I try to come back, and I really like the interaction with students. Charles Frazier sitting on the front row. Those of you who know Charles know that he's a longtime member of the faculty here at Lipscomb. In a 2-year period of time, I had Charles for 8 classes. And being a modest guy and showing a lot of integrity, I will tell you that I had 8 A's. So I really always liked seeing Charles. And Charles, thank you for the meaningful impact you had on my life. You know, Leanne and Chuck said you're going to talk about the intersection of business, integrity, and zeal. And I said, great. You know, I can probably boil that down to about 4 or 5 hours. And we'll do like an hour to 2 hours over a 3 or 4 day session. And they said, no, you have 10 minutes. And now I've got 8 minutes and 50 seconds. So we're going to really run through a few things. And I'm going to use a couple of props along the way. I'm going to focus on one particular aspect of integrity and zeal. And that's the intersection of where those two things meet. You know, whenever you are successful in business, in your life, in academics, whatever you're doing, when you're going to be successful, you have to make sure you're balancing your zeal with your integrity. Where I personally have found myself in trouble over the years, I've never had a problem with zeal. I've always tried to bring my A game. I always tried to make sure I got enough sleep. I always tried to make sure I was present in the moment, that I was engaged, that I was an active listener. All those things you'll hear about when you take, Leanne's communication courses or whatever courses they'll hear that stuff like that in. That's not the issue. That's never been the issue for me. What's been the issue for me is making sure I balance integrity along with that. When you look at history, sports, politics, and I'm going to use 2 or 3 examples in each of those 3 areas. Where the world has gotten into trouble over the last couple of thousand years is when the integrity did not match up with the zeal. Let me give you some examples. In politics, Richard Nixon, 1972, re-election at all costs, right? What did that result in? Watergate, that's right. Let's talk about a more recent example. Lois Lerner. Everybody know who Lois Lerner is? Come on, raise your hand. IRS, partisan zeal, got her to focus on conservative groups, probably partisan zeal facilitated by emails from prominent members of Congress or the White House. That results in a lack of integrity that causes emails to disappear. It may have resulted in her taking the fifth before Congress. Obamacare, whether you're for or against it, when it was sold, what was the one thing we heard over and over and over and over? If you like your policy, you can keep it. Millions of people found out that was a lie. So, those are just 3 quick examples from the political arena. Let's talk about sports real quick. Let me give you 3 or 4 examples in the sporting world. Lance Armstrong won how many Tour de France's? 6, 7, I don't know, big number. How many of those were because he doped? Michael Vick, very promising football career. Dogfighting? Really? Forfeits a $100 million professional football contract because of Where's the integrity there? Baseball. Plenty of examples in baseball. How many home run records are tainted because of the steroid scandal? Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. He's not because of gambling. All of those people had zeal. They had zeal at the wazoo. They were short in the integrity department. Tiger Woods, most recent example. A few years ago, one would have said he was a sure thing to beat Jack Nicklaus's record of 18 majors. Now he's even money at best to match that record. Probably 2 or 3 years of the prime of his career impacted by his personal issues, a lack of integrity. Doesn't mean he's not a good golfer. Doesn't mean Michael Vick's not a good football player. Doesn't mean that some of those baseball players weren't great baseball players. But a lack of integrity more than offset the fact that all of those folks showed a lot of zeal. Let's talk about history. The Roman Empire. Everybody know what a denarius is? Who's been in Bible class and studied a denarius? Knows what denarius is? Come on. Raise your hands. Raise your hands. Come on, come on, come on. Denarius was a form of currency, Roman currency, right around the time of Christ. And we'll hand that to Charles. Y'all can look at that. Let Charles show that to you after the talk. That's a real Roman denarius from 27 BC. The official beginning of the Roman Empire. Rome had had 500 years of being a republic. That goes away, becomes an empire in 27 BC, peaks in power and geography that it controls only about 100 years later, and then begins a 1,000-year period of decline. Most powerful empire in the world's history. Around 120 AD, Roman Empire controlled 20% of the world's population. And then infighting, assassinations, disputes, civil wars gradually led to a period of long decline. A lack of integrity. The communist pledges under Stalin. Stalin came to power in the 20s. He was the supreme ruler of Russia until 52 or 53. In the late 30s, in a one-year period of time, 37, 38, 1 million people were purged, killed, assassinated in Russia during the purges. Can't say the communists weren't zealots. Oh, they were zealots, all right. They demonstrated lots of zeal in terms of killing their fellow Russian citizen. An unbelievable lack of integrity. There are business examples, whether it's business example from 15 years ago, Enron, or 7 or 8 years ago, the financial crisis. You know, those are situations where the company may have demonstrated one thing in terms of zeal, but something completely different in terms of integrity. It's tough to maintain your integrity. Let me close with a personal example. How many of you know who Terry Bradshaw is? Come on, raise your hands. Famous quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Who's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan? Anybody? Right here on the front row. Right over there. I'm going to throw you a football. See if you can catch it. This is an authentic autograph Terry Bradshaw football. With no arrow. Why is that football in my home office at home? I no longer have an outside office because I'm retired. So I have a home office where all of the detritus of my career tends to accumulate. That's a great word. If you've never used the word detritus, look it up. It's a great word. It's the rubble of one's career. And 15 years ago, I was at a Bank of America leveraged debt conference where Terry Bradshaw was the after-dinner speaker. Probably 400 people in the ballroom. At the end of his after-dinner speech, where he gave a rambling discourse on a failed marriage, you know, Terry's been married 4 times. I think he's on his 4th wife. This was after wife number 2 or 3, I guess. Gave a horrible after-dinner speech. But, you know, the guy's a football player. He's not necessarily a good after-dinner speaker. The host, the Bank of America host, says, okay, Terry has agreed to throw out 12 footballs to the audience. If you look underneath your plate, like once again, there's like 400 people in the room. It's much bigger than this ball. It was a ballroom much bigger than this, although it's about the same number of people probably. If you look under your plate, you'll see randomly scattered around the room plates that have a star on them. If your plate has a star on it, Terry Bradshaw will throw you a football, and you'll have a chance to come up afterwards and have Terry Bradshaw, have your picture made with Terry Bradshaw. Everybody quickly turned over their plate. I looked at my plate, quickly raised my hand in a moment of zeal and said, here, throw me the football back. And I caught a football from Terry Bradshaw, which I continue to brag about to this day. What was wrong with that story?
Was there a star on your plate?
There was no star on the bottom of my plate. And in a moment of weakness, and in a moment of stunning lack of integrity, I raised my hand and caught a football from Terry Bradshaw. Never compromise your integrity for your zeal.